Welcome back in, everyone. Hope you all had a good holiday, good New Year's parties anywhere, stayed safe, and just enjoyed time with family. It's been a while since we've last recorded. Part of that's because, well, JC said it our last recording. He was boots on the ground in Ottawa. And unfortunately, it's more than just memories you brought back, JC. You brought back a cold. That's why, if you're watching this on YouTube, you only see myself and Travis on the screen. JC's doing a courtesy and just not showing us the under the weather look that he's going through right now. Just how you feeling there, bud, and how is Ottawa?
I feel pretty crappy for the most part. About as good as Dave Cameron's coaching skills, but Ottawa was fun. Like regardless of the outcome of Team Canada, that was fun to be a part of. Went and saw a bunch of other things too, like checked out a couple museums and things like that on the off days. But it was cool to check out that tournament. There's a lot of good hockey players there, and a lot of people met a lot of people. It was nice, so yeah, it was a good time.
It's good to hear there. Yeah, obviously. It's nice being in a spot that you can go and have some tourist attractions when you're not going to watch the hockey games, but
Do you have a highlight, JC? Like, is there one standout moment from the trip? I'm gonna take a wild guess and say it has nothing to do with Canada.
I mean, honestly, that Boxing Day game, I think I was just so hyped because I've never seen the World Juniors before, and you know, you saw them actually with a really decent performance against Finland. I was just so hyped going into the arena there. A few beers deep, obviously, and just kind of kept it going like that. It was hard to be that pumped up throughout the whole trip, but like that moment was it probably like for hockey wise.
just yeah, the energy that comes with the Boxing Day too and the World Juniors would have.
The atmosphere there, the atmosphere for like the New Year's was up there too, up until late in the game, but like that was kind of unmatched as well. But obviously, outcomes kind of derailed that a bit. But that Boxing Day, like just the atmosphere, the feeling going into that was, I don't know, it was pretty wild.
No doubt, no doubt. So yeah, for anyone, obviously, it's been like 2 weeks plus since we last recorded here. There's been a shit ton of news happening around the NHL. We will get to that next week's episode, or we'll get to it in the next few weeks' episodes. We'll touch on all that as best we can. This episode, we're going to focus solely on just the World Juniors there. Kind of start off, big shout out to the US first team since either the early 2000s or the late 90s that wasn't Canada that won back-to-back gold medals at the World Juniors. So good on them. They've obviously the sixth World Junior gold in the last 16 tournaments for them. So they're starting to really take this tournament over in a sense. But Finland and Czechia wrapping up the silver and bronze. Second straight year for a bronze medal for Czechia. So it's nice to see them come around and kind of enter the chat in the world, at least at the junior stage of being on par with a lot of the teams we figure are top countries. So, but we'll just, I mean, I kind of want to start though with the Czechia Sweden bronze medal game because it ended in a shootout and I'll get your both your opinion on this. Like, what's your general consensus opinion on having a shootout determine a medal game?
I'm not for it. I think they've changed it now in the gold medal game to have continuous overtime. I think they should do the same for the bronze. For the
No, go ahead.
For the preliminary round, yeah. Like, you're playing on multiple back-to-back days. There's no reason to drag out the games or change it from any more than a 5-minute overtime. But yeah, I mean, really, I think all medal round games should go continuous OT, even if they do play the semis and the medal rounds back to back.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Trav. Like quarterfinals, sure, make it 10-minute overtime and then shootout if you want, but once you end it down to 4 teams, shootout shouldn't even be a factor in any game. What's your thoughts on that, Justin? Were you at the bronze medal game?
No, that was the day I was like the most sick, so we didn't bother going. But
Fuck.
like obviously watched it all. I'm with you guys on that. I honestly think after the round robin, they should figure out something a little better. I just hate to see a team eliminated off of a shootout, especially when there's so much at stake. Like even in the quarterfinals, right? Like you're still going home. I get it to a certain extent. Like there's some games, even when it's 3-on-3 overtime, where it's like this looks like it could last a really long time. But I feel that there will be a mistake. Like if they did 20 minutes or something, it makes for long days there. It makes for long games, but I don't like to see teams eliminated going home, and especially missing out on a medal because of a shootout.
When it's literally just a skills competition of one-on-one with the other team's goalie. And
During that bronze medal game, I was just like, I wonder, like the goalies are probably way more tired during that shootout than they are at 3-on-3.
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I didn't really catch a lot of the shootout at all, but like obviously if you we'll get in touch on the Canada Latvia shootout. I mean, I don't think Felberg was that tired in the shootout. Canada didn't really make him move much, but if you're just gonna go down and shoot on the goalie, that's pretty easy. But it's if you have back-to-back guys that just keep coming at you with speed and are trying to deke you out and get you going down and up and moving side to side, that's going to wear on a goalie pretty quick. So you kind of said it. U.S. back-to-back gold medals. I mean, we said it at the start, like the episode before the World Junior Tournament there, that U.S. were probably the team to beat in the tournament, and they almost went undefeated. Finland beat them in the round robin in a hell of a game, winning in overtime, but like the U.S. didn't really look out of control in any game really that I saw. That they just kind of controlled every game from start to finish. And I mean, they got the top performances from their top guys. I kind of said that at the start. They didn't have quite the depth that a team like Canada had in terms of just true talent down below, but their top guys stepped up in every game. So hard to argue against that. What's your guys' overall thoughts? Justin, I'll start with you because you kind of got to see them. What's your general consensus thought on that US team?
Watching them live, like easy to say, like overall best team in the tournament. They kind of looked the most polished out of all of them. I mean, obviously next to the Finns, like the first game I thought between the Finns and the States in the round robin was the best game of the tournament. The Finns are fesky. They're pesky. Like they're a tough team to put away, and they get better and better throughout the tournament. But the States, they kind of had a good 3 lines kind of rolling. They had guys that can just score when they needed it to, like kind of more dynamic players than any other team had in this tournament, I think. Yeah, they're just all around. They were just really good. Like they never got shaken being down or, losing in the round robin. They just kind of bounced back kind of better than they were after any sort of like kind of downturn in the tournament, even being down 3-1 in that gold medal game. You just like never got that sense that they were going to be out of it. And they weren't, but kind of led by their captain there, which I'll be honest with you, he's a really good player. I just didn't really like a lot of the antics that was going on with his game during the tournament, kind of looking for calls. He was down on the ice a lot and kind of looking around for calls a lot. And I don't know if that's just the way he always plays or if it was just the stage, but it was starting to get kind of annoying just to watch because you're kind of hoping to watch the skill of him, not kind of that sort of game from him, I guess.
Leonard kind of has that Brad Marchand in him where he has to play on that type of edge, like kind of rat type player to be most effective. And we'll touch on officiating a little later, but obviously they're trying to sell a few calls. He understands the international game. They're going to call it a lot tighter than any North American game is played. So, Trav, you have any thoughts on US or Finland there that played probably the two best games? Mind you, Finns and Swedes played a good semifinal game too. So,
Yeah, I would just kind of agreeing with what JC said earlier about the preliminary game between Finland and USA. I can honestly say in the last decade, that one is probably in my top 10. Like it was edge of your seat hockey for 3 fucking periods. It was the gold medal game was a good game, but it in my eyes didn't even come close to the preliminary game. Just the level of hockey that was being played in that game. But looking at USA, you could just see it the deeper this tournament went, and even being down 3-1 to Finland. Again, like JC said, it just didn't really seem to be. You didn't seem to get a sense that Finland was going to get the upper hand in that game. I said this before the semifinals. I thought the only way that Finland gets to the gold medal game is if Rimpinen stands on his head, which, don't get me wrong, I think Finland deserved to win that game against Sweden, but Rimpinen was a huge part of that. And then in overtime against the Americans, it was starting to get to an area where you're like, this is almost a crime if Finland wins this, because Rimpinen was literally just standing on his head at that point.
and obviously he got goalie of the tournament. I mean, he deserves it. He played really well. Would have been an interesting how they would have done goalie of the tournament had Canada at least got to the semifinals because of how a guy like Carter George was playing. I mean, he gave up 2 even strength goals all tournament. But like
it was a big tournament for goaltenders. Like just so many of them played well at so many different moments of this tournament.
They did, yeah. It's like Felbury in Latvia, like he had huge moments. I mean, Latvia even gave a scare, and we'll actually highlight them a little later on the pod here too. But they had a really good showing this year, and even Kazakhstan, outside of getting blown out by Czechia, like their goalies kept them in and kind of kept somewhat competitive in most games. So it's nice to see all around, but let's get to kind of the main topic here. Canada, 5th place again for a second straight year. I kind of our chat asked each kind of pick a main point of what might have been the downfall of Canada. Justin, you were there. You watched it live. You said coaching. I mean, Dave Cameron, oof, but what can you tell us? Just a live reactions of how he handled just the game flow, game in and game out for that Canadian team.
I mean, to put it in simple words, he didn't handle it well from, someone sitting in the 300s watching. He was too hesitant to switch up any of the lines, like, put your best players with your best players, like, maybe try putting a McKenna with a Richie and Cowan, or a McKenna with a Richie and fuck, why am I
Nadeau?
Nadeau, yes. I'm brain is still a little foggy, but just things like that. He kept that top six so consistent, other than putting Bodwin in there. Too hesitant to switch that up. He's too hesitant to keep Martone in the lineup, which he looked fine both games he played before he came out, and then put his line mate in from Brampton. It takes Martone out, which, I mean, I don't know. I would play those two guys together on a line because they have chemistry and, they light up their league together. Not saying that it'll happen in this tournament, but I just find it to be little things like that really kind of bug me. It's just like, and then, in the quarterfinals, he needs to kind of switch things up after losing to the Americans. He just goes back the same lineup that he had versus Latvia. Takes Rakoff out and puts Martone in. I don't really see how that's any sort of improvement to the team. And then I guess, the straw that kind of breaks the camel's back is they're not practicing after losses. So there's no chance for them to get on the ice, have chemistry, kind of get the blood flowing, like, get the guys loose after a loss, just, like, have some fun on the ice, like, just, snap the puck around, do something, right? And work on the power play, because that was pretty atrocious for most of the tournament. And there's none of that. Like, they didn't skate for 2 days and then went into that game against Czechia. Or a day and a half, whatever it was. So a lot of these things don't make sense. He said they're tired, like 17, 18 years old. They're not tired. Like, they should be ready to get out there and improve and things like that. All of it was just starting to, and there is no accountability after either. He just, like, with the refs, or not the refs, the penalties, he's just like, I can't do anything. They have to figure it out. It's like, you're the coach. Like, you're there to address it. And just all these things that I kind of ran it on there. But those are all the things that are just on top of my head that really bug me about, Dave Cameron specifically. And, I don't think anybody on the coaching staff should really get a free pass, though.
No, the entire coaching staff's held accountable, and it goes all the way up to upper management too. And I just want to clarify one thing before we get much further here. Anything the three of us, are going to say about this year's Canadian team, or what probably about 80% or 90% of Canadian hockey fans bitch about when they lose in the World Juniors, it has nothing to actually personally do with the players. This is all on between the coaching or the actual upper management of Hockey Canada that put the team together, and just how they, like, galaxy brain everything. Like, that's what pisses most people off, is just how they do it. And then they just skirt around, they duck behind a corner and hide, and the players have to take the brunt of it, which is so unfortunate because, again, like, they're put in a position of that maybe they're not best suited for. They're put in a position where it might not look like it to some people, but these guys gave it their all. They tried their best. And honestly, in this tournament, they almost put too much effort in and had too much of a focus on just giving it their best shot, that they fell back into minor hockey issues of just, like, trying to do everything themselves, because that's when they always ran into trouble growing up playing hockey, that's what worked for them. They just took the puck, did it themselves. Like all this is, again, JC, you said coaching. Like Dave Cameron never took accountability. He kind of shaded the players every chance he got. Like, yeah, they have to, like, I can tell them not to take penalties, but it's up to them to decide. It's like, no, you can bench guys if they take a bad penalty, just bench them. That's one thing that stood out to me is like tournament's too short to start benching guys. Like that's the whole point of being a coach is if a guy's not helping your team at all, if he's being a hindrance to the team's success on the ice by either giving the puck away or taking a bad penalty, bench him. Like you're there to coach, and that's how you coach. It's just, I mean, and you go through, I still question why Dave Cameron was ever selected because he hasn't won jack shit as a coach. He's gotten to, like, he won the 2022 gold medal, but you also go and look at that roster. I mean, he almost blew that one too because I believe they beat Czechia in the overtime that year. Like, that was when he almost galaxy brained the situation and they lost in the gold medal game. He lost in game 7 in the OHL Cup. He's lost in the Memorial Cup final. And anything else after that, he's like one and done in the playoffs or doesn't make playoffs. So I just question why he was even the coach selected for this team.
His junior team's not very good.
Nope. And if their whole thing is, again, it kind of goes on to politics in Hockey Canada, which is a whole other issue, but it just seems that so many people at Hockey Canada are riding high on the late 2000s Drive for Five and the success they had during that, and they're just trying to like emulate those teams, and it just doesn't work anymore.
Well, back then they used to pick the best players.
Yeah.
It's a big problem. But
Trav, you got anything to add on the coaching there? Or?
No, you guys kind of hit the nail on everything I would have said. So there's no need to reiterate it. Yeah, we all know how bad it was from so many different areas. I hate to say it, but like it's got to be one of the worst teams of all time. And I actually want to, I'm kind of having a deja vu because I feel like I might have said this on the pod last year because last year's team was pretty bad. And I didn't really think it could get worse, but this year was bad.
Yeah, it got a lot worse. The action is ramping up for the NFL playoffs. You can get on this action at DraftKings, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NFL. Scoring big matters most in the playoffs, and with DraftKings, you can score big too. Bet on game lines, passing or receiving props, or a simple TD score. It's easy. Go to DraftKings app, choose your game, and select who you think will score a touchdown. Be the first scorer, or have multiple TDs. Right now, Joe Mixon leads the Texans-Chargers game, sitting at a plus 475 as a first TD scorer. If you're a first-time customer, there's a bonus. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when they bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
So yeah, for anyone watching, I just threw up the roster again. I mean, Trav, you kind of said it. I said it at the start too, like how many of these guys are true like game-breaking offensive talents And I could only maybe say, like, at this level, McKenna, Richie, Nadeau, and that's about it.
Schaefer.
Oh, fuck. He was. If he didn't go down, the tournament might have been different for Canada, but fuck, he was incredible.
It's crazy how much like that one player hurt this team.
And that's kind of like that's what I want to bring up, like just the roster construction. I mean, like Schaefer was such a valuable piece to not only the blue line, but the overall offense of this team. And it just felt like so many guys were. It just felt like Canada's was so reliant on like one or two guys taking the offense by the horns and running with it. And I kind of got the sense like they were waiting for McKenna to do that. But the issue is you're asking guys that, yes, these guys put up points in their junior league. This isn't the juniors. Like, this is the best of the best. And a lot of these guys, like, when you put them up against the best of the best, they aren't that type of player. I use Cowan as the example. He's a third line guy, maybe a second liner at best. But like, I kind of did this for fun too with for goals and that. Here's some of the guys that was left off of Canada and their goal totals at the time. Nick Lardis, Michael Misa were the 1-2 in goals in the OHL. 27, 25 goals, no invite. Seneca at 21. Guys like Liam Greentree, Jacob Battaglia, 18 and 17 respectively. Like, and you go by and you look at some of the OHLers that were selected. Like Callum Ritchie, he's only got 8 goals at the time of camp, but that's a little understandable. He spent time in the NHL. Cole Boyden, 13 goals. Easton Cowan only had 15 goals. And like Luca Pinelli had 21. Yeah, his play warranted at least an invite to camp. I wouldn't say it warranted a spot on this roster.
Top 6 tournament.
Fuck. But like you had like Cameron Schmidt and Andrew Crystal, like 24 and 22 goals respectively in the dub. Why were they not like Schmidt? I can understand. Why the hell was Crystal cut from this team? With the struggle that they had to produce offense. And here's a guy that is like strictly like an offensive assassin in junior hockey. I kind of go back to Hockey Canada's executives tried to turn back the clock, make it an early 2000s style of hockey team with guys that are just going to play an in-your-face kind of grindy out hockey. And that works if the coach actually like plays that style. But Cameron, I'm not even sure if Cameron had a style that he wanted the guys to play, or if he more just said, go out there and do whatever you want. Excuse me. But like just the overall roster construction, we said at the start, there were so many questions about it. And yeah, it ultimately came back to bite them. Like so many high-end talent guys, like game-breaking type talents, just left off of this roster. And now, like, everyone was screaming of it at the start with the selection camp, and now they're screaming again at it because Canada could not fucking score. Go ahead, Trav.
Just extremely undisciplined as well.
Yeah.
Like very untimely penalties. The Neen calls in the Czech game, I don't know if I agree with, but those are the only ones. Every other penalty, every other little fucking half-ass thing they did was all earned. I didn't think the refs really made a bad call against them until that Neen call. And I'm not going to really dive deep into that because it's I see the case maybe that people make for it. I just don't. In my head, I have an idea of what I think is and isn't a Neen major, and I did not see it on that play. Nor did I really see a 2-minute on the penalty that cost them the game. That's just my opinion, but everything else though, extremely undisciplined. I mean, Easton Cowan was yeah, not a good tournament for him. I'm not going to elaborate even any further on that.
That's again, I said at the start, he's not an offensive driver. He looks like an offensive driver in London because probably 60% of his shifts are he's playing against guys that are so below his level. Like that's where like so many people get this tournament skewed when they look at guys like Cowan or any of the other guys in junior hockey. They think it's they put up like they drive offense, they put up all these crazy numbers in the OHL or the WHL or QMJHL. That it's going to translate to a degree, like to a small degree, but this is the best of the best at this age group. This is where you really find out what guys actually are as players. And unfortunately, it showed that Canada just took a bunch of middle six to bottom six forwards and essentially a bunch of second and third pairing defensemen outside of 2 or 3 guys. Like if it wasn't for their goaltending, Canada would have. Honestly, I bet you Canada might have gone winless in the preliminary rounds. Like their goalies kind of were the reasons that they got a few wins.
Yeah, big time.
And I'm skeptical of Ivan Kovic as a goaltender, but you can't really blame him for the loss against Latvia. But Trav, do you have any specific area on this Canadian team that you really wanted to highlight at all here?
No, not really. Yeah, I actually don't even have a lot more on the team and how I felt about it this year. Just very disappointing. Like I said, like that's I said I don't know how you can get much worse than that last year, and I'll just reiterate it this year.
Yeah. And it's easy to point to the fact that Canada could have had like Bedard, Celebrini, and Benson play in this tournament. They're all still of age. But that's something Hockey Canada's had to deal with basically since the start of this tournament, that like every year they have to deal with, okay, we're probably not going to get our top guys because they're in the NHL. And then just to go ahead and bring the team they did is just so disappointing. But going back to, I want a quick thought on the Neen there. Like that Boyden one, the fact that Czech player like went down and looked straight at the ref to see if there was any call before like even reacting at all to anything. And then the fact he basically got up on his own power that's where the 5-minute, like if you're going to call it a Neen penalty, it's a 2-minute. For it to be a 5-minute major, that guy has to be helped off the ice by teammates, especially in a medal round game like that. Like, I think it was one where, because that ultimately kind of changed a lot of that a lot of that game because Czechs were able to just kill off 5 minutes on the power play. Yeah, Canada got a shorty, but the Czechs got a goal right back. And the fact, like, you let that hit go as a clean hit, even, which you can argue it was by North American standards, that probably energizes that Canadian bench by a lot. So, yeah, not much more. Like, officiating's the officiating. By this point, everyone has to know that the international game is called so much tighter. So, you have to adjust.
Tighter to an extent. Like,
yes,
before we leave this, since we've kind of talked this one pretty much dead, that call annoyed me. I think the second one annoyed me the most because there's no onus on the player for basically jumping out of the way of the hit from Gibson, which caused the knee. And a minute before that, McKenna got elbowed in the back of the head in the corner.
yeah.
And, which I think is a worse play than whatever Gibson tried to do. And yet there was nothing like that. That was a huge shift in the game. And I turned to Emily right after that Gibson minor. I'm like, this game is over. They're going to score. And, it did. Like, it killed everything that was going on in that building. It was insane.
You could feel that through the television. Like I said the same thing. You just feel the deflation after the penalty call because up until then, that was probably Canada's best period of the tournament.
Yeah. And again, it is what it is. We'll see if Hockey Canada learns any lessons for next year in Minnesota, but I doubt it. I kind of shouted them out, like Carter George and Jack Ivankovic. They played unreal. That there is goaltending coming up in Canada. Like, for as much at the NHL level, we bitch and complain that the top goaltenders are all outside of Canada. There is top goaltenders coming in Canada, which is nice to see. And both those guys are probably going to be back next year for Team Canada. So they'll be setting net next year. It's just, can they put a better team in front of those guys? Last topic I just want to touch on here before we can wrap it up. Like I said, we'll keep this one shorter. Latvia, are they coming on as a mainstay hockey power in terms of like a top 8 country here soon? Because the last 5 years, they've had some good success at the men's world championships. And this is back-to-back years where they've made not back-to-back, but this is the second time I believe they've made the medal round. And it's the first time that they've beaten Canada on the international stage. So, what's the vibes around Latvia here? Because they're starting to make some noise and they had a hell of a tournament.
Yeah, this has been on the come up, I think, for the last couple of years. They beat the Czech Republic a couple of years ago for their first ever win in the top division. And then, last year they get 2 years ago, got the bronze in the men's world championship there, which was massive for their entire country. Like, there's now a national holiday because of that. Yeah, I think they were just due. They've been probably the fastest growing nation in terms of their play in the last couple of years. I would say Czechia is right there as well since the absence of Russia. But yeah, like you said, Brock, I think they're a mainstay in the top group now. Those, I don't know if you guys have seen the divisions for next year, but that Group B looks significantly different from Group A, and I think Latvia could score as high as second, maybe, if there's a weaker team in the Czech or the Finns next year, and if Latvia brings a strong team. But I mean, at the same time, they could very easily finish fifth too. I mean, we've seen Denmark come into the tournament for 3 or 4 years there. I guess that was almost a decade ago now. So, but yeah, I'm happy for Latvia. I'm happy to see like the world catching up and making these tournaments more competitive.
That's the key. Is Latvia just has to like maintain this momentum. But
they have a lot of returning players, I think, too. Like,
well, their number one center was a 16-year-old. I'm pretty sure.
yeah,
that Eric's Mateko guy had an unreal tournament. That kid can shoot the puck.
Yeah, I think he's returning too. So yeah, it'll be fun to watch them next year. Mentioning next year's groups, it's going to be interesting how the IIHF factors in because there's a chance Russia gets back in. So it's going to be interesting how they bring that into the fold. Like, is it? I don't know what's your guys' thoughts. Like, do they just kick a team out and bring Russia in, or do you almost like reorganize the tournament slightly for 1 year and have 12 teams in? Like, bring 2 teams up from the lower group, or bring Kazakhstan back instead of relegating them, and just promote one team and bring Russia back in.
I think your simple answer is to just bring Kazakhstan back and have a 12 team tournament.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. Like a lot of that hinges on how the geopolitical landscape unfolds here in like the next month, but there is a lot of friction and traction coming with Russia's going to soon be back in international hockey play. So
Group B could probably use Russia next year. Group A doesn't really need any more teams like that.
fuck, we could see Canada finishing third in that group.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
Like
Sweden will dominate. I don't think we talk enough about Sweden. Well, maybe we do. Do we talk much about 1 gold medal in 44 years for a team? Like, the way we talk about Canada being, disappointing. Like, imagine being a Swede fan.
I really thought at the end of the day on New Year's Eve, like after the Canada USA game, I really thought that this was Sweden's year, the way that they looked through the preliminary. And I know we've seen them go 4-0 so many times, but I just was looking at the overall game, and there was a lot of good prospects on Sweden this year. I really thought that they were going to get over the hump.
I think some of the last like handful of World Juniors, you've kind of seen some of the drop that happens when you don't have like a Russia in there, especially in the round robin plays, because you get the fields where it's like Canada, Finland, US in one group, and then Czechia. You kind of know Czechia is going to be good. You never fully know for sure like how good they are. So essentially, you're like, okay, so that's Sweden's just going to steamroll that group. Once you get Russia back into this fold, it's kind of balances out group play a lot more and really kind of gives every team a true opponent, like measuring stick opponent to base themselves off of. That's my thought on that. On Sweden, really, like this year, they didn't really have a measuring stick game until the semis.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I was kind of in the boat with Trav. Like, I was about to throw on Sweden, but then I was like, I better just hold off on this. And then, so I'm like, that Sweden-Finland game's going to really show show you something. And, the first 40 minutes of that game, they couldn't really get much going, and then they kind of dominated a bit. But
yeah,
like it's insane to see, a country of that much talent and, that much success. Like they were doing this 4-0 runs in the round robins when the tournament was stacked full of like all these countries, and they still were never winning.
08, I think, is when it started.
Yeah.
Because they were supposed to win 08, 09. Actually, 08 for sure. They were supposed to win. And Canada upset them with an overtime winner. Matt Halischuk.
Yeah, I still remember watching that.
Yeah. Then 09. 09 was kind of almost the blueprint team that this Canada team was trying to emulate, because they were like back in Ottawa, just that blue nose type of team, and didn't work. But that 09 team just frustrated that Swedish team. But yeah, like to only win one goal back in 2012, it is disappointing for them.
Yeah.
But then, and I know Russia hasn't been in, kind of say the same with Russia, because since take out the early 2000s, they've only had one gold.
Yeah, that's true too.
Like they only have the 2011 gold medal. And like from 2013 onward, it's been Canada, Finland, and US collecting the golds. So
2011, that was the first time that the Russian gas ever made its way to North America.
yeah. But no, I think that's we kind of broke down that tournament pretty good. Obviously, there's lots of other news that could have been talked about, but we might touch on those in a later pod. Justin, we'll let you get some rest and hope you feel better here soon, bud. So
right on.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Catch us all next week. We'll get back to trying to snap around the NHL and figure out all the news that's happened in the last 2.5 weeks.